Well, welcome to What the Dutch. Today I am joined by an exceptional leader and true visionary in the healthcare and insurance industries, David Miller. Over the course of his impressive career, David has built hospitals and ambulatory surgery centers across the globe, including Egypt and Central America. He served as the president of a brokerage house and now dedicates his expertise to advising physician practices and physician-owned hospitals on employee benefits and malpractice insurance. Known for his passion for innovative solutions like no copay, no deductible plans, David is a tireless advocate for improving access and affordability in healthcare. We're thrilled to have him with us today to share his insights and experiences.
Okay, tell me your favorite zero card story. Oh, I did that on purpose. Did you see how that went? Okay, but I just want.
My favorite story is when I hired Chuck Foster. That's my favorite moment.
Okay, so I introduced Chuck to Jim Millway.
Yeah.
And then how did Chuck get introduced to you?
Well, via you and Millway.
Okay.
And we needed a, provider, recruiter type person.
Yeah.
And, we were having a hard time, finding, we had Stan Schwartz, but, he wasn't really that forward facing. He was more behind the scenes technical.
Yeah.
So we needed somebody like Chuck to come in and help us with, the bundles and be a bit more forward facing with the physicians as we were out. Because my job was not only selling clients and managing my sales team, but also was recruiting, new providers coming to our network. And I didn't, I get the relationship side I had, but the technicals behind the scenes of the provider side I did not have. And that's what Chuck brought to the table.
What was it like when you first met him?
Chuck?
Yeah.
It was good because I can say almost all of our one-on-ones was at a cigar shop.
Oh, I love that.
With a glass of bourbon. So that was my favorite part.
Yeah.
And I've never had anybody else that I've managed that I got to do one-on-ones with a cigar and a glass of bourbon. So it was really fun for me. And where we were located right downtown, we could just walk over.
Oh, you guys went over to Classic.
Yeah, we just went right across the
Oh,
street.
nice. Okay, so had you ever dealt, before you started Zero Card, have you ever dealt in bundled prices? And then tell people what bundled prices means, because nobody knows it.
No, I had not. Well, take that back. Yes, when I was at Nuterra in Kansas City, one of the opportunities I had was to create a medical tourism company called Nuterra Global Alliance.
Okay.
And so where there was...
And Nuterra's owned by?
Well, it's privately held by Dan Tassett.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's Senator Marshall's buddy.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So 90 hospitals in 28 states at
Holy
the time. At the time, when I was there.
90 hospitals?
In 28 states at the time.
Wow.
So they hired me when I left Humana and came over, and had a bunch of opportunities to be on their board, kind of help Dan with kind of cultural things. And then he wanted to start businesses that were kind of adjacent to the, managing the hospital piece of their other business, which was their core. And he first sent me over to Cairo, Egypt to work on a project in Cairo. But then he quickly... climate changed in Cairo, so we had to leave because the political climate change was no longer safe. And if you don't know Dan Tassett, he's very entrepreneurial, but he's just like, hey, medical tourism's big. I want you to start a medical tourism company. Like, okay.
You're like, okay, yeah, I'll figure it out.
I don't know anything about it, but that's what he said. He goes, figure it out.
What was Egypt like? Like when you landed in Cairo, what was it like?
It was hot. It was very odd. It's hot. It was odd because in Egypt,
I've been, a lot of people have
22 million people in a very small space.
Yeah.
And so what was happening is that they were starting to move outside of that, we'll say, loop, if you will, because it's really like a big loop where they all lived. And they were building these closed communities from sand up. And I was over there with Robert Trent Jones Golf Course, AMC Theaters, Nebraska Furniture Mart. We were the hospital component, and we were meeting with the TMG group, which were the developers of the community. And the TMG group, you know who they are?
I'm trying to remember.
Osama bin Laden's family.
Oh, that's right.
And so we were the hospital component.
So now people are going to wonder if you were really in the CIA.
It was
I build hospitals.
a little bit unnerving once you found out that that's who that was. But you kind of wanted to raise your hand and say, you know where your son This was before he was before he
Yeah,
was killed.
before 9/11. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but it was crazy. It was parts of it like I have the claim to fame is that our first night there we were going to a light show at the pyramids. So they had a dusk show where you go set and they
Yeah.
tell the story, give you all the history, and the Sphinx, is right there. And my claim to fame is that I still get grief about is I fell asleep within 30 minutes. So I'm sitting there, one of the seven wonders of the world, and passed out.
This is awesome.
I was exhausted. But, it was I mean, the Mediterranean Sea was beautiful, and we did a dinner cruise down the Nile, which was really cool. The people were nice. One other thing I learned is they took us out for dinner in hookah,
Oh yeah.
and I had to leave the next day to go to London, and then I had to take a 3-hour ride from London somewhere to Leeds and beyond for another meeting. And so I smoked the hookah and then proceeded to get the next day very, very sick because the water.
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't even think about it. And so I was sick all day, like puking on the train, and it was miserable. But the entire experience was great because it's just something you don't get to see. We went to the Egyptian Museum and got to see all the artifacts. And
Have you ever thought about taking your kids?
no, it'd be a great trip. What I'm most disappointed in myself in is that going over there, I have never been to Greece, never been to Italy. You're flying over.
Yeah.
As you're on your way, and I never took the time to just spend a
Kinda
few
hop
extra
back.
days to hop around, because it's pretty close geographically. Never really took the time to do that, but I'd love to take the kids over, love to take my wife over. She's never
Yeah.
been over there either. So, but it was parts of it. It's like almost like third world because just,
Oh, for
you know,
sure.
the best part about being there. So we stayed in the Four Seasons Hotel, which was owned by the TMG Group, and across the street was a Hard Rock hotel. So we were gonna one night go across the street, which sounds normal.
Yep.
But if you've ever been in Egypt, it could be 2 lanes of traffic going each way, but ideally that's what it's designed for. But it's like 6 lanes of traffic in each 2-lane road. Also, not only with cars, but with, like mopeds
Yeah.
and horses and buggies. And the rule is no matter where you're at, if you need to turn right and you're in the far left, as long as your nose is in front of the next car, you can turn.
You can turn.
And so every car's dented.
Yeah. Yeah. They're all messed up.
It's so the story is we're going across the street, and it's watching us go across that was like a Frogger. Is like,
Yeah. You're just trying to move.
the best. So when we made it across, it was like we cheated death. We're high fiving like we made it. So
Now, how long were you there?
back and forth for about a year.
Okay.
Um,
That's a pretty long time.
yeah, I can't remember how many times I actually went over there, but then, like I said, the political climate change pulled us out. Then Dan said, you need to create medical tourism. So back to your original question, have I ever done bundles? And I don't know if this is, I'm trying to remember, the one thing when we started investigating medical tourism, getting kind of the lay of the land, I went and found a couple of guys down in Florida that were from Columbia that had been in the space. And I started learning the biggest complaint about folks coming in to the U.S. from Central America and the Caribbean was if you come in through a medical tourism vehicle, you get a 30% discount, on the episode of care. What's the same problem we have? 30% of what? Like
Right.
Charge Master is different wherever you go. And you really still don't know how much you're going to pay with a 30% discount. I'm using that number loosely because it's all over the board. So what we did differently is we put together bundle pricing. So full episode of care, had physician, facility, anesthesia, and step down recovery. So we had hotels.
Oh, wow.
Part of it. So we're the only ones that were able to do that. So then I recruited put together a network. Ochsner Health System was my first hospital in Louisiana, domestically. And then I put together a network throughout the Caribbean. So I had Cancun, I had all throughout the Caribbean facilities, all the way down through Ecuador. I had 3 hospitals in Ecuador.
Wow.
So I had Quito, Guayaquil, and Cuenca hospitals there.
How did you manage to do that?
Those are just the road warriors.
Yeah,
Got on a
wait.
plane and went.
Oh, you did?
I was just learning, and I had, my team. There were like 5 of us on our team, and so And then I hired ambassadors in each country. So I had an ambassador in Belize, an ambassador in Ecuador. So I think I had 5 ambassadors throughout the Caribbean and Central America, and their job was to work with the local hospitals and then basically recruit folks to come to the U.S. for care. And Belize actually happened to be our best country because of the way the road system was designed. They were always having, for whatever reason, bad accidents. And Dr. Jorge Hidalgo, I think was his name, was the medical director for Belize. So he would send clients into Ochsner quite a bit. But we managed the whole episode of care from airfare as well to facility to step down recovery and back.
So there's so much there.
Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by the MJ Companies, a partner dedicated to transforming private practice and physician-owned hospitals. With over 60 years in the industry, MJ is one of America's largest privately held insurance consulting companies, offering a wide range of solutions tailored to your healthcare organization's unique needs. From reducing expenses through innovative employee benefits with domestic networks, captive models, to providing exceptional property and casualty coverage, MJ has you covered. But they don't just focus on protection, they actively contribute to your growth, building direct contracting networks that drive new patients to your practice. By adding their per employee per month revenue, fee-for-service models, and even capitated income streams, the MJ Companies help create a sustainable and diversified growth opportunities. Visit themjcompanies.com to see how they can take your private practice to the next level.
So we were kind of ahead of the curve a little bit when it came
Oh,
to
you're way ahead.
bundle pricing. And at that time, just didn't realize how well it could translate over just to domestic care.
And did Dan kind of finally say, like, hey, this isn't making enough money, or whatever? What were the problems and why did it stop?
Again, Dan's very entrepreneurial. So we did that for 5 or 6 years, I believe,
Okay.
and relatively, I'd say, successful.
Uh-huh.
And then Dan wanted to create his own insurance product.
Okay.
And that was my background. And he had found some guys down in Houston, and no offense, Dan, if you watch this, but he asked me to come and lead that charge. And I just wasn't on board with the products or the people that we were trying to put together for this insurance product.
Yeah.
And that was going to be his next thing. And about that time, I had an opportunity to go to the Dominican and lead a group called Hospitals International to put together a hospital project bringing U.S. physicians and Dominican physicians together in Punta Cana. Because
Not a bad place.
Punta Cana was, at the time, was the #1 travel destination in the Caribbean with a very crappy healthcare.
Yeah.
I believe that there was a Dominican and then I think a Spanish hospital there, but ambulance drivers weren't certified. They maybe had a driver's license, and that was about it.
That's about it.
So you anything bad happens to you at a resort, and an ambulance has to come and try to save your life, forget it.
Forget it. Just get there yourself.
Yeah. So they had a patch of land right in Punta Cana Village, right by the airport, and so they needed a team to come together. It was a physician equity model still, so they wanted Dominican and U.S. physician investors. So I did that for the next year. After I left Nuterra, I was at Nuterra 9 years. Did that for a year, and we needed to raise. Gosh, I can't remember how much we needed to raise for that project. I think it was around 12 or 13 million to get it started from physician funds, and we had about 8 million. And Hospitals International was funded by one neurosurgeon, basically.
Okay.
In family, and that was it. So long story short, we ran out of money. And so we had to break escrow and give everybody's money back, and never got it. And I knew it was a risk when I started it, but it was an opportunity and an experience of a lifetime that
for sure
was great. And then I came back, and then that's when I learned about bundle pricing and learned about the opportunity with Zero and
so
started
in your mind, what are the advantages to bundled pricing?
Transparent pricing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know exactly how much it's going to cost you. You have, like I mentioned earlier, the episode of care. You have physician, facility, and anesthesia. And so there's no hidden bills, like you get today. Like today, the bills don't seems like an endless flow of bills coming in after you have a surgery. You don't, here's one for the anesthesia, here's one for a Band-Aid, and you just don't know when it's going to stop. And you really don't know how much it's going to cost you at the end of the day till all the bills are tallied.
So what was it?
Frustrating.
What was really the impetus when you got to Zero Card, or maybe before? Like, what was it about that opportunity that you were like, holy smokes, this really could be, kind of a world-changing deal? Yes, certainly how we all kind of looked at it.
Exactly. Now, I think just that from a member perspective, having that solution as part of your healthcare now, that if you did need an outpatient procedure, you can go and say, okay, I need, rotator cuff surgery. I need, MCL, ACL surgery.
Yeah.
First of all, I knew how much I knew how much it was going to cost, but our point solution, and like most, for me as a consumer, it was no copay, no deductible. So now I just had an increase in my, benefit package, if you will, with this point solution called Zero. So for me, that's a win.
Mhm.
And, we tried to put together a provider network that had all the, tried the highest quality doctors. It wasn't, I think that was the hardest thing to overcome. A lot of people's perception was, all right, I'm getting this, no copay, no deductible, nothing's free. And, what's the catch?
Yeah. What's
So
the
you
catch?
must have the doctors that don't have any patients, or the worst doctors that are participating. And they didn't understand the economics for the doctor on the other side of it, which were much better than traditional payers. So that was one of the challenges. But once they learned, the benefit that they had and how easy it was to use it, it was a really good benefit for the end user. And don't get me wrong, we still fought utilization, even something that was
Oh.
free, which kind of boggles the mind.
Yeah.
We still battled utilization because people are just so used to traditional healthcare and doing it the same way. And even if you have something that's free, that's an excellent benefit, it's sometimes really hard and frustrating to get people to still use it and value it.
You've done thousands of onboarding meetings. What do you say to people who go, look, I really want to understand. I'm an employee of a self-funded plan. I really do want to understand my benefit plan. What do you say to them?
Well, I mean, that's you have to ask the questions. I mean, to understand it, you have all your tools, right? You have your benefit guide, you have everything online. I mean, I think to really understand it, you need some live scenarios. Or I'd say, okay, well, tell me about a time that, or something that you have coming up that you need to utilize your benefit plan. And let's talk through the mechanics and how that will actually work. I think that's the only way you can really understand it. And here are some point solutions you may have that can help with whatever procedure you're going to have.
Yeah.
But I mean, you really don't understand it, especially on the traditional side, until you use it.
To use it.
I mean, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know the loopholes that, from pre-authorizations to, denials, to all the things that happen with a medical claim that you don't anticipate.
The MJ Companies sponsor this podcast, which is your solution for reducing expenses and enhancing financial health in private practices and physician-owned hospitals. The MJ Companies understand that managing employee benefits and insurance expenses are crucial, so they provide solutions that make a difference. Their employee benefits program leverages domestic networks and captive insurance options to lower expenses while maintaining high-quality coverage for your staff. Additionally, the MJ Companies offer top-of-the-line property casualty coverage to protect every aspect of your practice. These cost-saving measures help you reallocate resources where they matter most, delivering quality care. If reducing expenses while keeping coverage strong is a priority, check out what the MJ Companies can do for you at themjcompanies.com.
Do you think that now that you've worked for some point solutions like Zero Card and others, which I don't name,
Yeah, me either.
now that you did some work for those, what do you think, like as we kind of have stepped forward, do you think there's a place for those point solutions, or do you think those point solutions are now being integrated into health plans And kind of tell us where it's going.
Great question. Really good question. A year ago, I would have answered differently. I'd have said 100% there's a place for those, and there's still a place for those.
Yeah.
But now that I've learned and been with MJ now for a year, the MJ companies for a year, and really learned more about captives and the unique captive plans that MJ offers, I now found that you can integrate those types of benefits into your health plan that makes it much simpler from a user experience.
Yeah.
Both on the physician and the member side.
Sure.
And you get the same benefit, the same savings, same benefit, same no copay, same no deductible, but it is all integrated. So now instead of trying to convince somebody to go outside of the traditional plan, this is all baked inside the traditional plan.
Yeah.
And it's a easy, seamless user experience. They don't even know, a lot of times maybe not even know they're accessing that benefit.
Right. So you mentioned the word captive. Can you tell me a little bit about captives? I'm kind of,
Yep.
because I feel like every post on LinkedIn from some benefits person is captive. And I'm like, do you even know what a captive is?
Yeah, captives have been around, even back
Well,
when I was at Nutera back in the early, middle 2000s, we actually had a captive for the 90 hospitals that I mentioned. We put together a captive solution. The captive is merely a vehicle, we'll say, for smaller to mid-sized companies to have an option to become self-funded, right?
Okay.
So it's an option. So I know prior to captives, really, there was not an option. If you're small to mid-sized companies, you're stuck in traditional, fully insured healthcare environment.
Yeah.
Now you have an option to come into a captive with like-minded companies and own. Basically, a captive is you're owning your own insurance company.
That's right.
And you're financing your claims differently. Instead of paying, the bucas to manage your claims, right, and take all the risk, you're now taking some of that risk. You're buying some stop loss to mitigate the risk, but you're now becoming an owner, and you have much more control over data. You have much more control over your decision making, and you have much more control, in theory, over stability of premiums.
Yeah.
So that's in general what a
So
captive is.
what's your captive doing for benefits?
Yeah. So the MJ companies, we have a large captive. It's really designed for really any industry that can come into that captive, right? I think we have now 60 clients, about 11,000 members in that captive. And then the MJ companies hired me to create a subset of that captive called Surge Re.
Yeah.
So the play on words, SURG, capital RE, specifically for physician-owned hospitals and large independent practices, surgery centers.
Yeah.
And what's cool about that is I'd say that and that's kind of where I've spent most of my career, working with the physician-owned hospitals.
Yeah.
What's cool about that is most of them are that small to mid-size employee size. Most of them are fully insured. Most of them are frustrated, just like every other fully insured client, that you just keep getting trend or higher increases year after year with no information why. You just take it. And now you're stuck in the game of, how do I mitigate that increase? Well, I have to cost shift to my employees via a high deductible health plan. Somebody's got to take on the increase. Yeah. So most of them are in that space. And now I can come to them and say, look, we're creating this captive, again, of like-minded companies, so all physician practices. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to, first of all, get a lot of data on what's going on within your group, but then show you how you guys can come together and own your own insurance company and control the risk and have an opportunity to actually, if you have a good claims year, which you will, turn that into a profit center. That's number one. And then number two, what we can do within the surgery captive, which is super cool, is that we can now create a new, what I'll call tier one benefit. So traditionally you have a tier one in-network, tier two out-of-network benefit, right? It's kind of what
that's normal.
So now we're creating a new tier one, meaning that any physician group that's in that captive, any specialty, we're creating a tier one, and we're calling a friends and family discount. So if you're a cardiologist and I'm an orthopedic surgeon and Chuck's he does pediatrics or primary care, it doesn't matter. Your employees can now access any of the specialties within the captive at a no copay, no deductible, and at a discounted fee. So now all of a sudden, all the practices are controlling the supply side and the buy side for their employees. So anytime your employee goes to my practice, I'm giving you a discount, a friends and family discount, so automatically your claims are gonna be less, and your employees are getting my services at no copay, no deductible, so now it's an additional benefit for your employees. So it helps with recruitment, it helps with retention, and, it helps with their pocketbook also.
Sure.
And the beauty of it is, we're doing it most of the time with the same carrier, same insurance company that they're using. We're just doing it in a self-funded. So UHC has UMR as their TPA. Aetna has Meritain as their TPA. You can still use those same carriers, those same networks, but what we're doing then is changing it from fully insured to self-funded. They're managing the claims for you, and then they're integrating this new tier one behind the scenes so that it's a seamless experience for the employees. Where at Zero Card or some of the other bundled service point solutions, it's done outside of the traditional healthcare plan, so it's a little bit more clunky, and you have to get people to do something different, which is harder, as we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I built one of those together, and and Chuck and a couple other people. I had to call, and then they had to set it up outside.
Yep.
And then the physician had to send a claim.
Yep.
Or an invoice.
Yep.
And then we had to call the employer.
Yep.
And then we had to get them paid.
Yep.
But this way, the carriers, who I generally don't like, right? I mean, in this case, the carriers are actually seamlessly integrating it with a customized fee schedule that we've created.
Correct.
So you take the friends and family, and we create another fee schedule.
Correct.
And then when a customer shows up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that matches that fee schedule.
Yep. They're going to have their same insurance card just like they do today. They present it at the physician desk like you always do. And then they're automatically going to tell them, oh, yep, that's an employee of Dutch Rojas Inc.
Yep.
And they get the friends and family discount, and it's adjudicated seamlessly.
Yeah, that's really not. I mean, I think for 10 years we tried to get different carriers to do it, and they wouldn't do it.
Yep. Yeah.
But I guess that's what, I'm not trying to suck up to MJ here because I like those guys, but like they're able to negotiate big deals like that.
They are. And that's what I love about the MJ companies. They were a client of mine for about 7 years when I was with Zero and a few of the other bundle carriers. And when they approached me after the fact, that I've been in healthcare 33 years and had not been on the broker side, been on the carrier side, the hospital development management side. But if there was a broker that I was going to go to, it was clear in my mind that it was the companies, because they're super creative, and they're not stuck in a certain way of doing things. They're very open-minded, and they have a lot of unique solutions that even the big boys, the Lockton, CBiz's, Holmes Murphy's of the world don't have.
Yeah.
And so that they made it fun and easy for me to make a decision to go over, and I'm able to sell something that really no one else is selling. Yeah.
Well, you've had a lot of success already this year.
Yeah. We've had a ton of success. And essentially what we're doing, Dutch, is we're creating, we'll call it a domestic medical tourism network in the surgery captive.
Yeah.
Because no matter whether you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, Shreveport, Louisiana, Phoenix, Arizona, if there's a specialty that you need to get to, if you're in Lincoln and you need to go to Phoenix to one of our surgery clients, then you get that same benefit. You get no copay, no deductible. You get a discount on their services. So it makes it a pretty cool experience. Yep. And we'll continue to grow. And we've just scratched the surface. We've just really started doing this in the last year. So we're, less than a year into it, and we have a ton of momentum. And, over the next 5 years, this thing's going to really snowball for sure.
Well, by then you'll be really old and ready to retire.
That's the idea. Yeah, you're really old to retire.
To retire.
At some point. Yeah, at some point.